After all the planning, the training and the waiting, it comes down to one weekend in Cape Town. A city transforms, the mountain awakens, and thousands of footsteps carry stories of courage, connection, and endurance. This is where it all comes together. The place, the people, the purpose, moving as one. In this final episode of the RMB Ultra Trail Cape Town series, we look at the race itself, the heartbeat of everything we've spoken about. You'll hear from race director Stu McConaughy, the man who turns chaos into choreography, from Mike Edwards of RMB, whose partnership brings purpose and meaning to every stride, and from Max Kleur, the voice of the finish line, who has witnessed more emotion in a single weekend than most people have seen in their lifetime. Because this isn't just a race, it's the moment everything we've built, the mountain, the people, the spirit, finally come alive.
For R&B, Race Weekend isn't just an event, it's a celebration of everything they believe in, partnership, purpose, and community in motion. I spoke to Mike Edwards about what it feels like when the planning becomes real and when the mountain finally fills with movement. When R&B kind of first were considering it, what was it about UTCT that was just like, this is who we need to sponsor?
It was just a couple of things. It was a unique sport that I don't think a lot of other corporate partners were involved in. So from that perspective, we saw an opportunity for huge impact and transformation, and we look for properties and spaces and events and people with which we can make a big impact beyond the sport too, and beyond the event rather. And then secondly, we just identified RMB Ultra Trail Cape Town as a leader in that category and a leader in the sport. We saw how quickly they were growing. We saw how the standards of the race that they were putting on were to the same standard of the very best in the world internationally. And we saw the trajectory of the sport, and we wanted to be involved because of all those things I've mentioned to you in the past. It's so much more than just a trail run. There's an opportunity to give back to the environment. There's an opportunity to give back to young and up and coming talent. There's huge awareness and growth, and there's an opportunity to celebrate South African talent and trail running talent specifically on this iconic stage, which is Cape Town, RMB Ultra Trail Cape Town. And so that's ultimately, I think, what attracted us to the sport and to the specific event at the time.
The race has kind of evolved a lot over the last couple of years. Do you feel that it's capturing the values and the principles that R&B is set for itself?
No, 100%, and thanks for the question. It's characteristics and attributes of the sport, but specifically of RMB Ultra Trail Cape Town, we're totally aligned with ours. It's a sport that requires grit, it requires commitment, it requires real talent and sacrifice. And as a brand, we are those things too, and we do those things every day for our clients. And so it's a very short bridge to connect the dots between trail running and business, just around what goes into it and the time and the effort and the support that's required, and partnership and community. Because this race is only as good as it is and as big as it is because of the partner network, which includes the sponsors and the broader community who've helped it grow. And we just saw a total brand fit with RMB Ultra Trail Cape Town.
We did chat about in the place episode, about that kind of legacy and, what comes after we've kind of left the planet, or, what comes in the future. Why did UTCT kind of stand out in that respect for you guys?
Yeah, and it's another concept that's very, very easily and readily slipped into cliche, but it is about leaving a legacy. And there's no more permanent legacy in my mind than our natural world. And it's a sport that takes place in that natural world. And we are all custodians of looking after it to ensure that it's can be enjoyed by future generations. And together with our partnerships in this sport, and together with the RMB Ultra Trail Fund and all of their other additional sponsors, we all have a mandate to look after it and ensure we leave it in a better place in which we found it. And so from that perspective, it was hugely appealing for us to get involved and play a role in making sure that that happens.
We're going to hear from Stu in a minute, who's obviously the founder of UTCT and the race director and really the visionary behind it. Every race starts with an idea, but it takes vision, courage and grit to turn it into something the world remembers. Stu McConaughy had that vision, and from that vision, he's helped shape RMB Ultra Trail Cape Town into what it is today, a celebration of people, place and purpose. How's it, Stu? Welcome to the Trail Chasers. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Take me back to the beginning of the race and how it kind of started, and what was it about that kind of initial idea that you thought this could be a really good idea that would work?
Firstly, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. And I think if we go back to I guess it was early 2014. I'd seen the initial kind of advertising that Nick put out, Nick Bourneman, and it really sparked an interest because it looked like something finally in the trail space that was kind of toward a longer distance, a bit more of a focus, so I followed up the first article, and obviously the bottom said Nick Bourneman, and I thought to myself, sure, I know a Nick Bourneman, and anyway, I managed to track him down. Nick was based in Hong Kong at the time, and he had obviously picked up a lot of things that were happening in Hong Kong that kind of weren't happening here. And anyway, we got a hold of each other. I got hold of him, and we had a chat. And that was kind of the start of it all. I think we were both pretty like-minded in where we felt like the race could go, the potential behind it, and the rest, was down to obviously support from various people, including our folks, but also the drive to get it to where it is now.
Yeah. And what did those first few years or first year or two kind of feel like behind the scenes?
A lot of learning along the way. I have often kind of been asked, would I would I do it again? And I have often said no. Those first couple of years were wildly stressful. We hadn't done events before. We were kind of learning on the job, and you only get one chance. And then, Nick was working in Hong Kong. I was doing, odds and ends and different jobs at the same time as trying to kind of, as we were both trying to kind of put on this event that was slowly but surely gathering momentum, but also taking more time and requiring more effort. And I think, one of the things we really focused on was feeding that. We didn't want it to be just another race.
And what were kind of some of the main challenges you faced, and how much of that was down to the environment in which you were operating at the time versus just, as you say, a lack of event experience?
I think there were certain elements which made it harder, but I think looking back, I think a lot of those pieces helped us grow. And I think if we had gotten everything we wanted early on, I don't think we would have been able to take advantage of them when they did, say for instance, the locations or the areas where we could access in the park. That took time, it took relationship building. We learned a lot. We understood the park. We understood what they were trying to achieve at the same time as what we were demanding, in a way, what we felt was our right. And we slowly learned that, you got to work with people. And anyway, we developed those skills and over time. And I think that helped us, grow partnerships with key stakeholders, and then eventually down the line with sponsors as well.
And I mean, obviously the race has changed a huge amount since that first one, and I think it's pretty obvious to see. But if you look back, what were some of those big changes and those big kind of breakthrough moments that happened over the last sort of 10 years?
Sure. There are obviously a number of them. I think post-COVID, winning the Parks Trust in line to take the event through the night. We worked hard, proving to the park that we could put on an event that went through the night, that we were capable of doing it and doing it well. I think that was pretty stratospheric for us. We've often said at the same time that we got given 24 hours or the opportunity to run through the night, we actually went back in and asked if we could do a miler. I'm not sure if the park quite understood what we were asking for, but they gave us permission to do that. So that was a pretty big day. Outside of that, I think 2019 felt like a big year for us. We had Salomon as a sponsor for a couple of years, and they really then elevated in terms of we got onto a platform. We were on the Ultra Trail World Tour at the time. The caliber of athlete coming, it just really felt like a big year for us. And then, within, I guess, the other parts of the event are that has been probably the biggest change for us as a business is having RMB as a sponsor, as a partner, who've they haven't dictated to us. They've supported us. They've helped us drive into areas that we've never been able to access before. Not just as an event, but as a business. I think those are pretty close to the big ones for us or for myself.
And how did the relationship with RMB come about, and why did you feel at the time it was a good fit?
Yeah, interesting one. I mean, we took a long time, longer than we expected, to sign a title sponsor. And, we look back on it and go could we have done something different? But I don't think it was the case. I think sponsorship is in a state or a phase now where you need to prove yourself before a partner comes on board. You can't just take a flashy portfolio or presentation to them and expect them to go, okay, cool, there you go, we'll back you. I think that was the timing. Like I said, we could have been earlier. It would have made things a little simpler, I guess. We developed a relationship. We presented to them, and in the first opportunity that we did present to them, they didn't take it. So we had to go back and then year two. I think some things changed from their perspective. They looked at their portfolio, and I think at the end of the day, it came down to having built up a bit more of trust and a bit more of a relationship with them that allowed us to, and obviously the event itself was getting to a phase where it was, shouting that, we deserved or felt like we had got to that point where we deserved a title sponsor, and they saw that opportunity. Kudos to them. And they haven't come in and, like I said, and dictated. They've supported what we want to do with this event, the ethos behind the event, the people or the charities or trusts or projects that we like to support that leave the mountain and trails in a better state.
Yeah. And you did mention a little bit about those ethos, and I think it comes through very strongly in the race, So have you kind of visualized those or kind of articulated those, or is it kind of just it's always been there from the beginning?
Yeah, I think early on we established like who we were and what we wanted to stand for, and that kind of came about through, we had the opportunity to see other races, not necessarily just in trail running, actually more outside of trail running, to learn from those events and I guess businesses as well. We wanted to establish ourselves and hold ourselves to a very high standard. I think it's one thing to have those standards and the other thing to deliver on them. I hope we have to a certain degree, and we constantly question ourselves on those areas of the event. Are we making an impact socially? Are we making an impact environmentally? How do people coming into the sport, how do they portray? We look at all of those aspects of the event and try and maintain the highest standards. Yeah.
How do you not sort of rest on the laurels and kind of keep improving that year on year?
To be honest, like I don't. Naturally, I'm a pretty competitive person, and within the team, we're all pretty driven to constantly evolve and raise the events. Not necessarily its status, but just the experience for the runner. We're very proud of the event, obviously, but we're also very mindful of the fact that there's an entire community and an ecosystem around this event that relies on us and is very proud of it. So we hold that kind of standard pretty seriously, and that responsibility equally. We represent major brands as well. So we have to deliver for them. From RMB to Terex to all our other partners. They're all part of this, we like to call it an ecosystem that delivers this event, which in many ways we hope kind of impacts people's lives, impacts their year, makes them feel proud to be South African. There's various aspects to it, but certainly there's no resting on laurels. Yeah.
And when I look at the race, I think three things kind of stand out. It's the place, it's the people, and the race itself. Starting with the place, you really do spotlight Table Mountain as a key feature of the race. Why is that so important? And has that always been kind of a very strong focus?
Yeah, look, we're very lucky here to be in a location that is as spectacular as Table Mountain is. I think a lot of Cape Townians take it for granted, but we certainly didn't want to do that. I think one of the aspects to UTCT which is a differentiator and makes it quite unique is obviously the city around it, the size of the community that can support the event. It's not an event where you're landing at an airport and driving 4 or 5 hours to get to. That does come with distractions as well, because it's a big city. It's got so much going for it. We obviously work hard to keep people at the event. But Cape Town itself is an easy sell, put it that way. And I think Table Mountain is the jewel in that crown, and long may it continue to be that, because we certainly love our mountain. We're very proud of it. It's a little bit more technical than we like sometimes, but that's what she is. Yeah.
And how important is that kind of concept of leaving it better than you found it?
I think it pretty much is one of our most important pieces, that we don't just want to use and abuse something. I think RMB have really got behind us in all of the charities that we support, from Friends of Table Mountain, Sugarbird Project, and the Sustainable Cedar project as well. Those are kind of key elements to giving back, making sure that it's in a better state. I've kind of before we started UTCT, I was, on the mountain, using the mountain as a kid, and, I learnt about alien vegetation, and those are threats to our biodiversity, to our identity, and we need to look after these things so that, hopefully they'll be in a good state for years to come, when we're not around to enjoy the mountain.
Amazing. And, going on to the people, you've obviously, as you've mentioned, you've built a really strong community around the race. Where did the kind of that concept come from, and has it been around since the beginning, and how's that sort of evolved over the years?
Yeah, community in trail running is the key and the magic ingredient, I guess. If you look all around the world, there are communities, and everybody kind of echoes the same sentiment that community is key. We certainly couldn't put on UTCT without the community. There's over 650 volunteers that support us, that support each other. So there's this ecosystem, like I've mentioned, that works to enable an event like UTCT to exist. And I think we were, Nick was very wise in that he had seen and been involved in races in Hong Kong, where there's a large similar kind of environment where there's a big city and access to a natural space outside. And very early on, we established Tuesday Trails. That was a key part of us becoming part of the community and not expecting the community to just help us when we come to the event. And, I had certain experiences when I was younger with building a community, building a brand around the community, that helped us make it simpler and easier. Look, Tuesday Trails took many years before it kind of got to a position where it was established and well known, but it certainly was a fundamental key to the ultimate success of UTCT, was the idea that we had the community support, and I don't want to just refer to it as a nameless thing like community. There are people who are close friends who have supported us and have become friends through this. So, it's become such a strong part of my life and all of our lives, I guess, is this this event which has weaved these connections.
And, everyone I speak to, who volunteers or works within the race, really comes away with, a strong sense of purpose and really a great experience. And what do you kind of put that down to?
I think I've got a really good team who help enable people to do their job, and to, I guess there is a collective sense of purpose in the fact that we're showcasing Cape Town, we're showcasing South Africa, we're putting it on the map. It's a big event. We've got over 650 internationals flying into Cape Town last year. Yet to see what those numbers will be this year, but I guess there's a pride, and certainly we've enabled that, and we've tapped into that. But like I said, without those people, it wouldn't happen. But it's certainly very rewarding in the weeks after the event to hear the stories, and even years later, you hear stories of people's experiences. How a volunteer changed their day, and you don't necessarily know who that volunteer is, but there's a pride in that we've helped enable that experience. So it's an amazing thing, and we feel like, yes, at the moment UTCT is in this great space and it's growing and things like that, but we're also just custodians of. We want it to continue for years to come, and hopefully, be a landmark event in the whole country and obviously the trail world. Yeah.
And what were the kind of lessons or the learnings from last year, and what kind of improvements, or what are you kind of looking at focusing on for this year?
Yeah, I think, look, every year we sit down after the event, and we debrief. We debrief quite hard with all our partners. We debrief with our service providers. Even though everyone's pretty much shattered, it's a critical element to self-analysis, self-improvement, is confronting the negatives, which are sometimes quite hard, because at the end of the year you're pretty low, your energy levels are spent, you just kind of want to switch off. But it's been a very, very vital ingredient to developing and growing. This year, there's going to be, I think people will definitely notice the difference. I kind of feel like we say that every year. But, Race Village will certainly be slightly bigger. There's more thought gone into it. We've kind of moved some things around. We've moved the final aid station from UCT to Newlands picnic site. That's quite a big one for us. And we did it in conjunction with RMB.
What was the thinking behind that?
Just look, the location I feel is amazing. It's more a natural landscape. Yeah. It's got great tree coverage. And it is literally on our route, so the changes are very minimal. But I think the experience-wise, I think it will help elevate the experience and not by no means detract from it. And then I think outside of that, I just think people will notice that the event continues to help or move forward in a positive way. Hopefully the experience is a good one, and that it goes smoothly for everybody, really, safely as well.
And if you look back over the last 10 years, what has been the hardest part of it, and how did you kind of push through that?
I think definitely the first 5 years were really hard. We had to try and figure out, how to make it a business. Because you can only do so much with what you've got, and to try and, make it a full-time thing. People still ask me, what do I do? What do I do with my time? And it's this, and we've got a small team now of 5 pretty much permanent people on the team that work full time on UTCT and UTD. Obviously, it helps having a title sponsor like RMB that helps enable us to do these things. I think the hardest part outside of growing the business and learning how to develop into a business per se was probably 2 years ago with the muggings. That really was it was just so hard to deal with, that something so kind of small and could be so damaging. I'm not saying the incident was small, but the impact of those incidents were, felt shattering at the time. And it took a lot to kind of keep going, not necessarily keep going, but to, see the bright side, drive harder, to work at it. And I think, I always try and look at a silver lining. And I think, you've got to see the positive in every aspect. Look, what we took from that, I can't exactly tell you, but there were certainly tough times,
Yeah. And when you stand on the start line and finish line now, and you see all those people, you see the how the race is built up, what goes through your mind?
Look, I'm obviously very proud and amazed that it's got to this level. Look, it's been 11 years, so we've worked pretty hard to get it there. But I can't help but feel absolute stoke at where it is and what we get to do. I sometimes have to obviously pinch myself. I get pretty excited as well. So yeah, you know, I feel like in many ways it's a privilege to do what I get to do. It comes with responsibilities, but I certainly wouldn't trade it for anything else. And then, you know, seeing people step up, do hard things, conquer fears, boundaries, whatever it is that they're confronting. Everyone has a story, I always say, and every distance is somebody's ultra. So yeah, we're just lucky and proud to be able to give people the opportunity to do these magnificent things.
Yeah. And, you know, finally looking ahead, you know, what do you kind of hope that UTCT becomes?
Yeah, I think just to become, I guess, in a way, like Comrades is, you know, a landmark piece, a landmark moment in the country's calendar that people aspire to run, to be part of, to represent, and that it continues to make people proud to be Cape Townian, to be South African, and that it doesn't disappear or go away. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with where it is at the moment, and we'll continue to drive. But yeah, I'd love to see it on national TV. You know, all of those elements, they will come with time. But yeah, everything takes time.
So,
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dean.
This was fantastic. And yeah, good luck for this year.
Thank you.
And excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the support.
What was it about Stu in particular that kind of really resonated with you guys?
Yeah, great question. And before I jump to Stu specifically, RMB sponsorships are all defined by partners that we share values and characteristics with, because it just makes more sense. It leads to longer term, more meaningful partnerships, and it leads to co-creation. And so we were never and will never be a traditional that traditional sponsorship model of here's our logo and here's some cash, go and make us look good. I think we spend a lot of time and invest a lot of time in spending time with our partners like Stuart and his team to ensure that we're on the same path, excuse the pun, we're on the same trail, with the same end goal in mind, and with some of the same core values and principles in mind. And so coming back to Stuart for a second, he's someone who has built an incredible community, and off the back of that community has built an incredible event. And built an incredible event with an incredible team. Excuse the use of the word incredible 3 times there, but they really are. And I think it shows in the passion and personal investment that they pour into the race. And much like we've spoken about it before, the athletes are not anonymous to them. The athletes are friends. The athletes are family. The athletes are community. And there's an acknowledgement in this space and with this event that the one needs the other. And the event can't exist without the community, and the community doesn't exist without the event. And so there's this symbiotic relationship. And I think Stu, to his credit, has built a large part of that and continues to lead that. And at his core, and I've spent a lot of time with Stu, as you can imagine, over the past 3 years, he is just a mountain man. He holds an incredibly deep respect for the trails, and he uses this event and this community to try give back what he's taken from the trails, because we all get to enjoy this beautiful trail network and these beautiful places, and not everyone gives back. And I think this event does give back, and I think Stuart and his team give back, and at the end of the day, I think great things happen when people have personal investment. And the Summit Events team that put on RMB Ultra Trail Cape Town, together with their partners, including ourselves at RMB, are all personally committed and invested in the cause and in building something special for the community to enjoy.
How do you then kind of incorporate RMB into the race without it being, oh, we're just going to put up some banners and, you know, put our logo everywhere? How do you then incorporate these kind of ideas that you have into a race like UTCT?
Yeah, well, there's some foundational principles that we learned. Was definitely a steep learning curve in year one. And I think we worked as closely as we could with the race to put on that first year of RMB Ultra Trail Cape Town as best we could, and we did a phenomenal job together with the team. And then from that year, I've said it before, once you immerse yourself in that community, only then really are you able to appreciate their wants, their needs, and how you can make a meaningful impact. Because we wanted to, the key word being integrate, and we wanted to integrate into this community, not layer on top of it. And over the years, and every year, we learn a little bit more as to how can we contribute authentically and meaningfully to this community. And definitely learnings in year one, but one of the first things we acknowledged and realized was this idea of support and community. And many of our activations and branded spaces at the race are centered on this idea of community. And we will pour a lot of time and investment together with the race to support the athletes. But equally, we want to support the community and those people that enable the athletes' goals to come to fruition. So yeah, it's been a journey of really integrating ourselves with the community, working closely with Stuart and the team, working closely with the partners, closely with the Trail Fund, because only once you have all those inputs and all those sources of information feeding what you do and how you campaign and how you activate, are you able to add meaningful value to the race on the ground. And I think more literally, the other thing we do out of interest is we survey the athletes afterwards and say, what do you want? What worked? What do you recommend? What didn't work? We sit down with the race organizers and the other partners and call out those key learnings and recommendations so that we can be better next year. With most things in life, if you are 1% better every year, that's all you can ask for, is let's just keep getting better. And that's the trajectory we're on.
And from RMB's side, what are the things that people can kind of look forward to this year?
Yeah, certainly. I think the one thing that's become a staple in the RMB race arsenal is our aid station. It's going to be very special. It's still going to be the last aid station. It's still going to be 10 kilometers to go. And you can bet your bottom dollar you're going to be welcomed into our aid station with our light tunnel, which is remarkable during the day, but absolutely out of this world at night. And so we'll have quite a vibe at our aid station. Sean Robson on the mic, amongst others. We want to, again, we have something in place for supporters to look out for. You'll know this if you go to any road race or any trail race or any race in the world for that matter. People enjoy making their own supporter signs. And we've got something in our back pocket for people to create something magical for their support and get something in return. I think the other thing that people can expect and has become synonymous with the race is the RMB Trail cowbell. So wherever you are on the race route, make sure you grab a hold of one of those and that you can ring your runner through to success. If you were lucky enough to run RMB Ultra Trail Drakensberg, you would have come across our Potjie Bell, which is a celebration of some South African heritage. And that Potjie Bell will be on the race route for you to ring in your success. The race village is going to be bigger, better, stronger, more exciting than previous years, and that's in part due to the coming together of all the partners, ourselves included in the race, and just continually growing and improving this race. And perhaps one of the most important things to touch on is also the increase in prize money, which we announced a couple of weeks back. And so we've increased prize money across the board, and something that we are incredibly proud of across all of our sponsorship properties is equal prize money across men and women, equal platform. They're running the same races. They're getting the same prize money across the weekend. And I think that prize money does two things. It attracts a higher caliber of elite field, which every year Ultra Trail Cape Town seems to attract, but also it really signifies a huge incentive for South African talent to go out there. And I won't even not wear my heart on our sleeve. Of course, I'd love to see South Africans winning on our home soil. And so that prize money is huge incentive for our South African talent to rock up to the start line of RMB Ultra Trail Cape Town and perform at their very best.
One of those people that are so integral to that finish line is Max Kleur. So we're going to hear from him. He's obviously the MC at the finish line. for a lot of those very iconic moments and those very tear-wrenching moments. So let's hear from Max now. If the mountain is the heart of this race, the finish line is its voice. It's where exhaustion turns into triumph and silence gives way to cheers. Max Kleur is that voice, the man behind the mic who brings every story, every tear, and every celebration to life. Welcome to the Trail Chasers podcast. So let's start off with, I guess your official title at UTCT, but what is your real job at UTCT?
So thanks, Dean. Thanks to all of you for listening. Really cool to be a part of the podcast. You guys are doing amazing things and really doing good stuff for the trail running community. So thanks, guys. I appreciate you, and I'm sure a lot of other people do as well. My job is I have two jobs, I guess. The first one is to come in and as what's called a fixer, where I come in and I manage and I fix and I link any sort of disconnected team members or suppliers, because as you know, on a day you've got your LOC, which is your local organizing committee, and that's Stu and his team and what they do, and they have their partners like RMB, like Terex, etc., that make it all happen, Sandparks, etc. And then you have a lot of suppliers you have coming in, whether they are technical suppliers with sound, with timing, with medical, with TV, with live stream, with broadcast, all of that sort of thing. And a lot of them come in, and luckily with an event like UTCT, the RMB UTCT, is that we've worked together before. You're not coming into a brand new environment, and that makes it easier. It makes you work quicker, make decisions quicker, relationships are already built. So it's just about getting there. I come in on the Wednesday. Most of these suppliers also were at an event the previous weekend, so they come in, they've literally got that window of 72 hours of readiness to get everything ready for the event. Make sure that the right people are talking to the right people, make sure the systems are working, make sure that all the health and safety links into what we can do with regards to noise pollution. For example, we're not allowed to talk between 9 o'clock at night and 6 in the morning because we're in that area at Gardens. And then managing primarily from the Friday, the MC portfolio, the hosting portfolio. I work there with the team on the ground. And again, obviously the MCs, which are the voice and the vibe and the communication of what is the RMB UTCT, it's important that they brief properly. So I work alongside with the LOC on that. I sort of coordinate that. We put schedules together. The DJs come into that. The sound technicians come into that. The venue comes into that. And it's just about making sure that you're ready. Each day has a program, has a schedule, as you would as an athlete know that you've got to do this on Thursday for registration, this on etc., etc. We have those schedules in place, and it's just about hitting those timelines and making sure that you bring your part to the bigger picture, really. And then obviously just the joy of then, knowing that come Friday, it's all done and you've got to execute. And that's where the fun starts, because you've done the homework, you've done the prep, you've done the hard work, and now it's time to celebrate with the runners and make them feel special.
Yeah. And, when you kind of think of UTCT, or when I say UTCT, what comes to mind? What does it kind of represent to you, kind of more than just a race?
So I think for me, I work all over the world. I spend probably 42 weekends a year working around the world. It's always special to work back home, always special to work in South Africa. I think for me and for a lot of the runners, it's an end of year celebration. It's into December, it's festive. This is my 10th one that I'm working on. I've only missed the one. And, it's a special community, and it's a time of year where, chasing records and setting personal bests aren't really on the top of the agenda for everybody. There might be those one or two or three athletes that have had a missed chance in a sort of September, October race, maybe coming off an injury, who want to then, gun it and burn it and get that last result for the year. But I think primarily, it's about having your personal race, but I think a lot of it is about contributing to the greater purpose. That is the community, that is Cape Town, that is the celebration in this incredible playground that is Cape Town at that time of year with your friends, your running clubs, your communities, all of that comes together. And this is a great time to celebrate that and just sort of wind down after a massive year.
Mm. And, you're obviously in that unique position of being on the sort of organizing and sort of MC side. So how have you kind of seen UTCT kind of evolve in that operational kind of side of it, but also, in terms of the spirit and the fierce and, that side of it as well?
So UTCT is super unique because again, it's a home game, right? It's like watching the Springboks play at home, you know. I think what you've got to remember is that the numbers keep going to a level where we have capacity with Sandparks. And now you've got what you call, you know, the crews. The crews start coming in. The cheer squads are there. And they're now adding value. So for every one human doing the race, you've probably got 2.5 to 3 people either supporting, being, pacing, you know, watching. So that community just expands generically. And I think it's grown organically. I think it's grown really nicely organically. I think it's certainly a highlight for, I would say, most runners in the South African space. Certainly for international runners coming through to Cape Town or South Africa for the first time, to experience an event at that level and to experience Cape Town at that time of year has got to be an imprint, you know, into their mind forever. I think they'll go home and talk favorably about that and to everyone, and you'll just see more and more internationals coming through, because you're just hitting so many buttons, you know. There's emotion, there's result, there's community, you know, all of these things come into it, and it's just this whirlwind of awesomeness. And I think that is something that imprints, and I think it's something that not only the athletes but also the families, the partners, the crews, the brands, everyone that's involved feels that energy, and certainly UTCT hits that on the head.
Yeah. And what are those, you know, certain aspects that really does make it stand out from global events, other than the fact, you know, for South Africans, it's a local event, but for foreigners kind of coming here, what are the things that they kind of take home that it's like, wow, this is on a global kind of level?
So I think that the athlete experience is really good. I think that the volunteer base, primarily not just on the trails with the marshals and everything happening out there. I think, you know, the runs and that happen beforehand, etc., etc. But I certainly think that the volunteer base is incredible. I think that the friendliness, the welcomeness, the openness is something that is quite rare, because it is real. And it lasts the whole weekend. Even when people are tired, you know, they're still looking after each other. I think, you know, the level of the aid stations is incredible. The partners that get involved there, the atmosphere, the vibe at those aid stations is next level. If you think of Kloof Corner at 5 o'clock on that Friday night with the sun going down, you know, you've got unicorns, you've got dinosaurs, you've got Jack Black beer, you've got people just like literally forcing you up into the corner. I mean, that's a memory for life. You know, Kloof Corner, if anyone who has not been there yet does not get there this year on Friday at 5 o'clock, they're missing out, because it's spectacular. Yeah.
And, you know, going to that kind of finish line experience, I mean, it's obviously an emotional space for a lot of people, but what is it about that moment that just like hits so many kind of those emotional notes for so many people?
So again, Dean, I think, you know, it is the end of year, you know, and I think people are tired. And I think they're doing that one final push. And I'm talking athletes here, you know, and when that athlete comes across the line, especially in the bigger races, you know, the 55, the 100K, the 100 miler, there's a lot involved. You know, we see it's not just pitching up on the line and running at 23, although it's a tough 23 on the day, and a lot of people are surprised by it. You can manage that. You know, you can even push the 35. But, you know, when you're going 55 and above and you're going ultra, there's commitment. And that commitment's not just personal. It's selfish, because you've got to get out and do it. If you're a family-oriented person, your partners, your kids, and all of that have to buy into that vision and that dream. And hopefully when you get there on the finish line and they're there waiting for you, they can see what Daddy did and why Daddy did it and why that's so important. And that builds a whole lot of emotional integrity with youngsters and families. And I think it also brings families closer together. So I think the big thing is the relief more than anything. And I think that's why that particular finish line is so emotional, because there is a relief that, whew, I'm done. The year is done. I can, you know, holidays are coming up. I'm getting to spend time with the family. I can tap out a little bit. And also it's, you know, that 100K and that 100 miler are beasts, you know. There's some demons that take you on and you down during that event. And without your community, your supporters, your seconds, your paces, a lot of people would give up. And I think that resilience that we get today, I think life is very easy for people today, because a lot of the time people solve for us. And I think when you go on a journey of an ultra, you know, there's a life meaning to it. There's an appreciation to it. You're engaging with nature at its core. You're on your own. You know, you're in that headspace that although you can maybe see a light ahead of you or hear someone running behind you, you're alone. And you're like, if I don't put one step in front of the other, I'm not getting off this mountain. And I think that builds tenacity, resilience. That builds people up and makes them stronger. And then that affects their core group of 5. And then that affects their core group of 5. So I think there's so much to be said for hardship and putting yourself through, you know, those hard times. And I think, again, that is why that finish line is so emotional, especially, you know, at that time of day. We've just finished prize giving. Prize giving finishes at 1 o'clock. 2 o'clock is the cutoff for the 100 kilometer. 5 o'clock is a cutoff for the 100 miler. That's 3 hours of just, you know, people at the Jack Black bar, on the sides, beautiful mountain setting if the weather's good, which it normally is, music going. And then, yeah, I just think that those final moments are massive. You know, it's big and everyone's tired. Just the run, just the crew, the commentator, everyone's tired and everyone's just giving their little bit extra to make it special. Yeah. That's pretty.
And how did that finish line evolve, I guess, over the weekend? You know, like when you kind of have your elites coming through all the way, as you say, to that Sunday.
So it's different because there's different types of energy, right? You know, that start on Friday for the milers as they go out at, I think it's 5 o'clock in the evening. Sort of, okay, this has started. We've done the registration, we've done a press conference, we've done whatever that's been done, and now the weekend starts. And I think from there, you know, you have these, any event has this up and down, these crests and these troughs, you know, and it's about managing those moments. And I think that's where our job as hosts, as storytellers is so important, is we have to identify where those moments are, and we've got to, no matter how we're feeling, we've got to turn that switch on and we've got to make those moments count, because those moments are important. And that's about managing the fatigue of the MCs, making sure they're taking shifts, making sure they're moving, making sure they're doing the storytelling, making sure they're getting the messaging across, making sure the MCs are intimate with the athletes. That's why 90% of our MC base are local. They know the community. They know the people. And I think that's critically important, especially as well because, as I said before, during 9 o'clock at night and 6 in the morning, we're not allowed on mics and we're not allowed to have music. That is in itself unique to Ultra Trail Cape Town. 99% of other events around the world in that space are allowed to do what they do, and we are not. So it's about that personalized handshake across the finish line, getting that drink to the athlete, making sure they get that medal on the neck, taking them through into the tent where there's hot soup and warm food and their families and that are waiting for them, you know, making sure that they feel special, making sure that they know they've just accomplished something phenomenal.
And, you know, besides from the kind of emotional kind of element to it on that Sunday, you know, what is it like knowing when that kind of last runner comes across the line operationally as well as kind of emotionally?
So that's also tough because the emotion, you know, when you hear on the radio, okay, last runner at Dead Man's Tree, coming down, guys, we're 2.5 Ks to go, coming onto the field, flares light up with the sweeps, and the crew, Ruben and Jan Ham or whatever it is, get those flares going, lights go up. They come around the corner, the crowd all comes to the finish line. And it's a realization of the end of another chapter, right? But at the same time, for the crew, there's a lot still to do. You know, with 90% of the crew, they are now out on course, taking down all the markers, cleaning up all the feed stations, the aid stations, making sure there's no litter on the route, making sure sand parks are satisfied with their criteria, all the way through to the finish line. People then staying on, you know, having a drink, having a bit of a party before they go home, which means you can only start really packing up the core stuff late that night or early the next morning. So there's a lot of, there's a mixed emotion, right? Because again, it's the end of a year. It's like, you know, pressure off the shoulders. We can chill now. But at the same time, you know, we work with a lot of these people from my side year round. You know, we work with them at other events as well. And again, this is that one opportunity where you're all together at the end of a year. And it's almost like a little celebration of, wow, guys, high five in the face. We've done another year. And to have that at the RMB UTCT is quite special because it is a special event. And it so many boxes across, you know, storytelling, across emotion, across goal setting, across just ticking boxes and doing things right. And I think that is important. You know, if we look at what is done throughout the year with Tuesday Trails and how successful that is. If we look at the Tuesday Trails the week before Ultra Trail Cape Town, on how big that is, you know, everyone who comes from around the world, even from other provinces, just this community is unbelievable. And I think that is the secret formula. The volunteers and community are everything in this race, and that you can't take that for granted.
Mm. And I'm sure you've had like millions of moments, but are there any kind of moments that really stand out for you over the last like 10 years?
Look, Kloof Corner has built up into iconic status, but again, that finish line, that when those flames, those flares go up, Ruben, Stu, Nick was there in the past as well. Jan Ham, when they come across the line, they sweeps off with them. Those last athletes are safe. You can tick the box to say route is clear, and there's almost that, like as I say, that pressure just pops, and everyone goes into that after party type mode. So. And I think just the status as well of the race for me is important. You know, as an international commentator and around the world, to work with this level of athlete, for them to recognize the status of UTCT and to come and pay homage to it and to race it. You know, when we had Jim there, when we had Courtney there, you know, those were big moments. You know, Jim Wormsley running, Courtney running. You know, we've seen some of the best, and now what we're finding is that we're seeing the best across each of the categories as well. You know, that 23 is now fast, that 55, that 35, those are fast. We know that the sort of the holy grail, which is the 100 kilometer, is still popular and still fast, you know, and that 100 miler is sought after but very difficult, and a lot of people are scared of it because they respect it so much. But it's got to be one of the most beautiful 100 milers anywhere in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. And the diversity of the race and the terrain on that 100 miler is second to none, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. The race village is such a kind of special part of the race and the race weekend. You know, what do you think is kind of the secret to creating that, you know, that absolute vibe around the kind of finish line?
So again, I think the people, I think the volunteer base, I think the intimacy, I think that it is so beautiful where it is. And yes, we can't, you know, we don't have that 9 to 6 a.m. opportunity, but 85% of the people are there outside of those times. You know, it's a place where you register. It's a place where, you know, transport is organized to hassle-free. You grab the shuttle, you get up, you're in, you're out, you go. At any time, you're welcome. There's food at any time. The vendors are incredible. There's always good music going on. And at any one time, there's always a story being told, because there's always somebody coming across the line with a new story. And sometimes you get those vibe crews coming through, and sometimes it's just a person on their own. Sometimes it's just one person on his own breaking down on the finish line, and it's that emotion, and then that's where the crew steps in and the volunteers step in. So I think it's the intimacy. I think it's just unique in that space, you know, that no other marathon does it like that. And that makes it sort of unobtainium and something very, very special.
Yeah. And, you know, it's always difficult because it's like it's hard to explain until you've actually experienced it. But how do you kind of explain that energy? You know, if someone's like, "Oh, what is the race village like? Why should I come?" type thing. Why should I come there as a supporter, or, you know, as someone who doesn't run?
So that's interesting. I think it's because of a couple of things. I think today you race yourself, but you're supporting the people around you, right? And I think that's one thing that trail runners do well. They humble in the way that they attack their race, and that race is a very personal journey for them. They know that they're going to go through highs and lows, hit those demons, etc., etc. But in the build-up and after, they're supporting others. They're supporting something bigger than themselves. And I think that commitment and that appreciation, along with the ability to have that unique experience with nature over that period of time, is unique. So
Yeah.
I think it's just, I also think, you know, you can't underestimate the amount of timing and planning that goes in by the local organizers. You can't, you know, it's a year-round thing. Yes, they work on UTD, yes, they work on Bat Run, but these guys are specialists in trail running, which means they need to understand their community, and their community wants to be involved. It's not like you have to be a volunteer. They are there already. Then you take into account how RMB has stepped up, how Adidas, Terex has stepped up. Take into the account on how that expo now runs and is managed. You take into account how the food is served 24 hours around the clock for the athletes, how the vendors are always there, how the bar is always open. You know, there's always something to do, and also the ability from outside to keep people informed, and the live tracking. You know, live tracking these days on a phone, such a good team. behind the scenes also makes it very interactive. So a lot of people I don't think are there just for their runner. I think they're there for more than that. I think they're there for other runners, community, friends, family, etc., etc. And a lot of them are also reporting back home. You know, a lot of them are involved in the social media space and telling people where they are and what they're doing and who's doing what, and that all helps in the sort of, you know, hodgepodge of what makes the race amazing, really.
In those moments, how do you kind of pick up what people need, from an MC point of view, but then also, what do the supporters need? What do the people that are cheering need? But what does this kind of runner in front of me need? How do you kind of pick that up and then balance the kind of the needs of all of those kind of people?
So I think after doing it for such a long time, I started out core as just a finish line, start line comment. That's all I did. I wasn't involved. For many years, I'd worked on some of the big projects around the world, and you learn very quickly body language of a runner. When that runner comes around that last corner, you can see whether they are able to engage or don't want to engage. And sometimes that 9 to 6 curfew serves in our favor because we can literally go in there. They don't want their name mentioned on the mic. They've maybe had a horrible day. They're super emotional. And you just go up to them and you just shake their hand and get that medal on their neck and say, we're proud of you and congratulations. And some of them fall apart and you hear their life story, and some of them just keep moving. So I think it's the ability to identify how that person's race gone in that last 100 meters. And you can often do that. What's also nice a lot of the times, we have family and friends around us. So someone will shout to us from the left, hey, that's John. It was his birthday yesterday. Or this is his first race. Or running for his father, or we pick up those stories. So that's the whole thing, is to be engaged, to be aware, and to try and find out. You can't bring every person across the line with their story, but if you can bring 30 of them across the line an hour with a story, well, then you're ticking boxes, because those 30 will remember that and they will be back, and we try to do it for everyone. We want everyone to feel special, and some people just have a bad day, as much as you want them to have a good day, maybe they just had a bad stomach. Maybe they just are not in a good space. No one ever knows what's happening at home. No one ever knows what their journey is. So you've got to be the best you can be with what you've got, and you've got to respect the fact that some of them are elated and happy, and some of them are just not. Some of them manage the experience and the emotion differently.
Yeah. And what do you kind of see that no one else does in terms of, I guess behind the scenes, or, those things that people might not know about or know or see during the race?
So obviously the most important thing about any race is the communication and the team on the ground. The Joint Operations Center, where you've got your head of the route, you've got your head of your marshals, you've got head of your volunteers, you've got head of health and safety. What happens in that vehicle and what's going on all the time, 99% has got nothing to do with the race. It's got to do with an angry resident. It's got to do with a dog on the route. It's got to do with inclement weather on the mountain, a fire starting on the other side of wherever, and those are fires, or those are things that need to be sorted out, which it's duck on water, right? You see the body of the duck, but you don't see the feet moving. So having a good team in place that knows what's going on, that can understand the picture holistically and can make those decisions quickly, 99% that is not felt, heard, or seen by the audience, the direct audience, which is the athlete or the spectators. So I just think that sometimes, athletes have a bad day, and maybe they need to also just remember that the organization is pulling amps. They've worked long hours to make this special for you. You paying an entry fee to service, and we believe that service is a spectacular one. But sometimes our team members feel it. Sometimes our team members are emotional. Sometimes they are tired, and sometimes we need to get them to stand down and just go and take, a timeout. And it's important to be well rested, although you're working through these times. To get that 1 or 2 hours sleep is so important at the non-key element and the non-key times, So, we see a lot, we see a lot going on, and a lot of it people don't understand, and people don't think it through. People are very quick to react on social media or whatever about how they feel, and rightfully so, because at that moment in time it's emotional and it's maybe disappointing or whatever it is. But they've got to understand that in 24 hours, that's going to be very different. In 48 hours, that's going to be even more. In a week, in a month, they're not even going to remember it. So it's just about being kind and being courteous to those around you, and understanding that not everyone's having a good day. you know, and sometimes a lot of people are having a good day, but there's always that one or two that aren't. And I think it's just respective person, respective place, respective time. It's something that, you know, we communicate to our team all the time. It's like, no matter what, you step up. No matter what, you make sure you're there. You don't have time to not be there. You've got to step up because this is your time to, and that's why you're here. Yeah.
We've chatted about how popular and how big the event has become. You know, what do you kind of attribute that to in terms of a change in culture or a change in runners, you know, and a change, I guess, in the sport?
Yeah. So again, I think you've got to go back to why people run, right? So, like, people who run, they're overcoming physical fatigue, they're overcoming adversity, they're getting out of their comfort zone, they're having to solve for themselves. They're in an environment which is enabling them to engage with nature. And there's a certain amount of appreciation for I think for the opportunity and the realization that they are fortunate enough to be there. You know, I think a lot of people do what they do for different reasons, but primarily, you know, if you peel down the onion and you go to the basic layers, people trail run because they love nature. People trail run because they love community. People trail run because it's healthy. It keeps them fit. It gives them a goal. It motivates them. So when you've got a organizational committee that is like-minded, that are also trail runners and that get it, you know, they want your experience to be wow. And when you've got partners like RMB and Terex that are all in for that experience, then life is easier. It's not difficult. You're not fighting too many wars and you're all working towards the same goal. So I certainly believe that the athletes and the people bring the vibe, but you have to have a like-minded organization committee, partners, suppliers, etc., etc. And I think that's what is good about this, is that everyone's goal is, if trail running wins, we win. And I think that's critical. You know, at the end of the day, it's bigger than us. Our communities are bigger than us. Our results are bigger than us, you know. And I know, you know, sometimes people are like, yeah, rah, rah, ree. But at the end of the day, like, when you hit the core and you take it down to the basics, that's what life's about, right? Life is about taking on and succeeding and winning and not only winning for yourself, but winning for the people around you as well. And I think that's what trail running brings, for sure. Yeah.
And what is that feeling like when you kind of switch off the mic for the last time on the Sunday?
Like, I guess what's nice about being a freelancer for me is that I get to work on events that I like. You know, I can say to somebody, I don't want to work on your event, you know, and that's not an arrogance thing, it's a confidence thing, and I'll sell time, right? So if I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there away from my family and my children and my dogs, and I want to be there for the right reasons. And certainly UTCT does that for me. It ticks a lot of boxes for me. So I think the appreciation of getting those sweeps across the line, everyone across safely, that's one, you know. And two, it's like, it's lekker, you know what I mean? That it's such a lekker event. Those of you from watching overseas, it just means it's nice, it's good. Everything about it is amazing. And when you can look your other MCs in the eye, and you can look everyone, and you can really feel honest about saying, yo, that was cool. I think that's what we are here to enhance the experience for the athlete. So although we can't run ourselves, we know what it's like, and we're there to make sure that they are looked after, make sure that their day is fabulous. There's a satisfaction in that. You know, there's a satisfaction in closing a door to an event, knowing that you did everything you could to make that event special. And if all of you have that same mindset, whether you're volunteers or marshals or staff or commentators, DJs, etc., then everyone wins. You know, you don't want to have someone working in this environment that's got negative attitude, because you're just going nowhere. You've got to have can-do people who can pivot on a minute and who can make this bigger than themselves and not make it about ego, because there's no place for egos in this game.
Reflecting on that finish line, what about those finish line moments, and more broadly, I guess, about that race village, speaks to you about what this race represents and why RMB is so proud to be associated with it?
Yeah, finish lines are very special places, and not just because of what they are in isolation, but because of what they represent in terms of effort and time over a long period of time. And you'll have some people who maybe trained a few weeks for the shorter distances, or maybe they're ex-elite, and so they've still got that muscle memory, and they can afford to train a little bit and finish a race strong. But for the vast majority of the field, it's a symbol of a massive, massive personal ambition and a massive personal goal achieved, that finish line. And people's reactions to that finish line vary. You see everything from the blasé, thank you, what's next, to the total wash of relief and emotion on the finish line. And what's most special about the finish line for me, personally and professionally, is the support that surrounds their runners when they come in. Some runners come through and finish on their own steam and head off to the beer tent and grab a beer, but you'll find that most runners are at least greeted by someone, be it a loved one, a random that ran the race with them along the way, and they high-five each other. And that's unique in some respects to the support, that you're finishing with your support, and they're there to embrace you when you cross the finish line. And it's always an incredible magical moment. If I could, I would set up a camp chair on that finish line and just watch, because there are a million stories coming across that finish line, and it's very special.
When people finish that race or cross that finish line, or reflecting back on the race, particularly around, the whole experience of the race, everything from the aid stations to the volunteers to the registration, what is it that you really want them to take away?
Yeah, twofold appreciation. And I think the first comes a lot from international athletes. I think there's a massive appreciation and, frankly, mind-blowing experience of Cape Town in Southern Africa, because it is beautiful. Granted, the weather holds, which we know it doesn't always, but there are always going to be pockets of that race week where you take a moment and your breath is somewhat taken away by the spectacle of the environment that you're looking at. But I think both international and local athletes share the sense of appreciation for the community. And you mentioned Max. Max does a lot of the post-race, post-finish line interviews of those elite athletes, and I don't think I've heard an interview to date where they don't often first and foremost acknowledge the community and the aid stations and the volunteers that got them there. And so that's a very, very special part of trail running, but I think in particular a special part of RMB Ultra Trail Cape Town. Broken English or not, they're crossing that finish line and trying their best to put into words how the volunteers and those aid stations carried them through the race. And I think it's renewed appreciation also for locals and Cape Townians who may not have ventured on all of those trails that they would have in the past, and or experienced their own city through a totally new lens. So there's something for everyone, and I think therein is why the race continues to attract the best trail running athletes in the world and domestically.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much. This has really, I think, opened a lot of eyes into what goes on in the race, and it certainly made me very, very excited, even though I won't be taking part, but really, really excited to be involved and support the race coming up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dean. Thank you for having me. And if you're listening to this and you're attending the race, I can't wait to see you there. If you're not running this year, make sure you get it on your bucket list for next year and future years. Thanks so much, Dean.
Every race tells a story, not of times or trophies, but of people who gave everything they had to reach the final stretch. For some, it's the end of a journey. For others, it's just the beginning. Because RMB Ultra Trail Cape Town isn't just an event. It's a living reflection of the city, this mountain, and the people who make it all possible. From the first footsteps to the final cheer, it's proof that when purpose meets passion, a race becomes something much bigger than itself. This is the RMB Ultra Trail Cape Town, the place, the people, and the race that connects them all.